Good afternoon, everybody. My talk is going to be slightly different from what we've heard so far. My talk is not about politics or study in political science related areas. It's be mostly about what kinds of methods we can use or employ to make politicians' lives easier, or people who are studying about politics their lives can be made easier. So mostly I'll be talking about methods, touching upon two projects to give example how these methods can be effectively used, hopefully effectively. So here I've listed a set of questions which I think are relevant or resonate in the field of political science. And what connects this problem, these questions, is large amount of data in the form of news, social media, or like very domain-specific documents. Like for the first question, it can be the proceedings of the legislatures or the parliamentary proceedings, etc., or understanding a new law, new bill, documents related to that. So it may not be just like news or social media. It could be other domain-specific documents which needs to be processed to understand or address these kind of questions. And the problem is like, usually these are like, we are at the age of big data where text data, like any other data, is being generated at a very fast rate. So we need to have some kind of efficiency to process and extract answers from these questions. So this is where I feel that text mining, efficient text mining, sophisticated text mining methods can help. And in what ways it can help? First is in understanding or like reading large amount of text and extracting meaning out of it, making sense out of that. And I would say this is kind of mimicking the human behavior, that like what human researchers do. They read and try to make sense and collectively put the knowledge into writings. So this kind of methods would try to mimic the human behavior, but at a faster rate and maybe in a more efficient way. When I say efficient, I mean that it might remove the bias, the objectivity of, subjectivity of the human researcher through these methods. A second way text mining can help is by like extract or uncovering the latent patterns, the hidden patterns within these large data sets. Something is lying there under the thick layer of words and like jargon, but which might be difficult for humans to extract because the scale of the data. I feel that some methods can help us uncover those hidden patterns. So in a nutshell, text mining methods are important to represent text quantitatively. So you have large amount of unstructured text. Text mining methods can help to convert that into a structured form. With that, let me just dive into one of the projects when I have worked in the domain of political science, and this has been a collaboration with Joyji, Daniel, and Priyank. All of them are from this university. So this is about like how politicians do it have an impact on the mainstream news. Focusing on specifically one politician, we are planning to generalize this approach. So it has been not a very recent phenomenon that politicians use social media in many different forms. And this statistics from the diplomacy study done last year, we see that politicians actually have like a very active on social media. And if you look at the general rate, you will see that these numbers are among the top 10 or 20% of general Twitter users. And I don't know whether the names are visible over here. So the first one is the Pope, though is considered head of the state. But if you eliminate the first name, the second and third is Donald Trump and the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi respectively. So let's zoom into the third entry. So Narendra Modi's start, like rather auspicious start on social media, happened on February 2009 when he opened his Twitter account and like gave a very posted a very uninteresting message. Thereon, and his growth in Twitter has been phenomenal. Today, he is the second most followed politician in the world, and as you can see, he has almost 20,000 messages and reaching almost 50,000 followers. And it's also like very like his activities also. He's very active on Twitter. Like a lot of his messages are also being retweeted. So So here's a summary of his activity on Twitter using the dataset we used, which was still October 10th of 2015. And you see, like at the start, he was very sporadic in posting messages. Overall, over the years, particularly when he became the prime minister, which was in the middle of 2014, suddenly his rate of posting on tweets has increased. And as I just said, that he is quite like active. This is a plot of the retweet rates. So a lot of his messages are retweeted or followed or read by a group of followers. And so it's not only Twitter, like he has many other outlets to convey messages to his followers. I think the very first presence he had in the web was through his personal homepage, personal web page. And now he has an Android app. I'm sure, like I'm not sure, probably has an iOS app as well, but definitely has an Android app. He has like YouTube channels, and he has very innovative channels, innovative platforms to reach out to his followers, to his listeners. And the last one I showed here is a radio program called Man Ki Baat, or which will translate into my thoughts, my inner thoughts. And it's like it reaches to a large audience where he talks about his experiences or many other things. One typical feature of all these platforms is that they are simplex communication channels. That is, that they are all one way, where he posts a lot of things, he conveys his own opinions, but there are no obligation to take questions or respond to the questions his listeners or audience might have. So he has been like very particular, I don't know whether consciously, that the observation is that he has preferred this kind of communication channels. On the other hand, like looking at the traditional media outlets, like TV interviews or performing press conferences, he has been like very rare appearances on television. Again, a disclaimer that this might not be complete. This is just I plotted this using this my personal input information doing web searches. This might not be complete, but the bottom line is the takeaway message from this graph is he has not conducted any press conferences in this time span and had done like very sporadic appearances on TV, one-to-one TV interviews, which we see certainly there is a jump, but in this year, 2016, 2018, that with appearances in the friendly channels, which the news media outlets which are slightly
what is the scale? Are those
these are numbers, exact cubes are numbers. So it's that sporadic. But again, I'm saying it might be I might be wrong, it might be an underestimation, but it's not very far from the reality. It kind of reflects the reality. And
there are no red boxes.
As far as I know, there are no red boxes. Please correct me. Okay, so there is that's confirmed, right? Yeah. So there are no red boxes, and very few. You can count the number of TV appearances on TV. And I remember the 2008 one. I think there might have been one, two around that time. He actually walked out of the interview. He didn't like being asked those difficult questions. He left the interview. And nowadays, the TV channels he appears on, they are kind of friendly channels. They don't ask difficult questions. They kind of applaud and play along with his policies. So what would media do when they need to report about his policies? So in this paper, we try to study the second order effects of social media, specifically for specifically for Narendra Modi, and because he has this very peculiar attitude towards the media. How can news use social media? So the question we are asking here is under what conditions mainstream media, traditional media sources uses Modi's social media messages to write their articles, because they don't have any other information, because they don't have any other sources. He's not going to conduct press conferences or will not appear to any random news channel. So here's an example. So what happens in this kind of traditional channels? So here's a message Modi posted about when he was attending this enclave of public sector enterprises. And so this is the article about that Modi's appearance on that event, in that event. And you can see that this article is actually quoted from his tweet. It's a direct quote. To probably, again, I'm not sure, but it looks very obvious that the person who wrote this article, actually the source he had was probably his tweet. So, and this is how it works. Like a tweet, like a journalist is using Modi's tweet and putting it as a direct quote. Sometimes that might not happen. Like here's another example where there is kind of a summary of what Modi said, changing the words. So to understand that this, to address this question, the bottom the underlying problem we need to solve is to identify when a news article is using information from Modi's tweet or any tweet in general. So there are different ways a news article can use a tweet. One is a direct quote, as I showed, like the exact message has been copied and pasted using proper citations. Or it can be an extract, that not the entire quote was used, the entire message was used, a part of it was used. It can be an abstract, like maybe no words were exactly quoted, but the main essence has been put into in different words. Another thing can be, at all these first two categories, the news article might mention Modi tweeted, or the source has been specified. But when I say cursory mention, it means that the news article said Modi said, or Modi announced without giving any reference to Twitter, but maybe the information was opted from Twitter. So this makes this matching problem a very challenging one. Like for direct quotes, it's easy, but maybe as you move towards right, it's difficult. And the hardest part is when Modi uses different languages. Modi has a habit, like he has a very populist ways of interacting. So whenever he's doing like foreign visits, he uses the local language to greet the people. Like when he went to Israel, he used Hebrew. When he went to Bangladesh, he used Bengali. And like today is like around today and tomorrow, there will be a lot of New Year's in India, and you might see a lot of messages in many different languages Modi will post, which has happened in the past, wishing everybody from that community a Happy New Year. So it might also be like the English article has translated it. So the translated the original message. So it will make it even more difficult to understand, identify whether this has been used from Twitter or not. So if you plot this on a complexity scale, this is how it will look like. Identifying direct quote is easy, but identifying messages from a different language will be very hard. And at this point, like, let me just walk you through different methods that can be used over here. Starting from a very classical method called term frequency, inverse document frequency, TF-IDF in short. So this measure, it measures some importance of an individual word based on two things. One is the term frequency, how frequently this word is appeared in the text. And second is inverse document frequency, which translates into how popular or how common is the word. The first measure metric is very easy, right? Like more number of times the word appears, it's important. But it might so happen it might be a very common word like the, of, is, prepositions, articles, which might appear in all the documents in very high frequency. That doesn't mean the word is important. So the IDF term kind of suppresses that popularity. So when you combine these two terms, the value you get is a representation of, in a very an objective representation of the word and how important it is. So you can convert these words and compute this TF-IDF score and use that to identify the importance of a word. Another very popular text mining method or text analytics method is topic modeling, particularly this very popular algorithm of topic modeling called latent Dirichlet allocation. What it does is it will help you to convert a large amount of text into a smaller dimension. You have a set of 10,000 articles, you can represent that corpus of 10,000 articles into, say, 100 sized topics. So that means that every document is represented as few topics. And the way it works is that it assumes that every word in a document is drawn from this topic model. So your universe has, say, a small number of, say, 100 or 200 topics, and every word in the document is drawn from one of these topics with different probability distribution. So in the end, what you have, you given a topic using this topic model LDA, what you get given a document, you know what topics are present in this document and in what proportion. So you can see in this example, this is a document and it shows based on the words that appeared on this document, the distribution of the topics. So the column chart you see with different colors, those are topics that is present in this document and in what proportion. Major limitations of these problems are they use this called bag of word model. What it means? It means that each word is considered individually in isolation. The connection between words are not important for this model. You can jumble up the words and get the same one. But that's not true for language. Language sequence is very important. So a new generation of methods came which remove this assumption, this bag of word assumption, that will not look words in isolation or will not assume the words are independent of each other when they're appearing together in a text. Then came a different types of models which try to understand the semantics of the words. And one of this method is called word embeddings, which is again putting words into representing words using a vector of real numbers, which means that it will place in a high dimensional space this word on a high dimensional space where the semantics will be captured. That means that similar words, words with similar semantics will get together, while words with very different semantics will be kept in different corners. And as a result, what happens when you see the entire vocabulary is embedded into this high-dimensional space, you will see that words which are not similar only in one sense are still together, like king and queen. Because they are like royalties, they will get together. But because they represent different genders, they will, in some respect, will be far apart. And this is a general overview of how it works. But the funny thing is, this representation of words can actually help you to understand, like, do mathematical operations on this. Going back to the king-queen example, if you do, and the word embeddings, as I said, is a vector representation of these words. So if you do algebraic operations, if you do king minus man plus queen, what you will get is very close to the vector representation of queen. So this kind of works like, has some magic in it. And similarly, you can get other kind of relationships, like you will find the country and capitals, the difference or the summation of the vector values of the countries and the respective capital cities are almost the same. So if you know the capital cities of certain countries, you can automatically calculate the capital city, you find out the capital cities of other countries. Some kind of question? Okay. So all this representation of words, how we can use it, and particularly in the context of our problem, to compute similarity or compute distance between entities in the text. So you can use TF-IDF, you can use topic models, you can use word-to-vec to compute similarity, and that's what we're trying to do over here. I would just mention, keep in mind the time we have over here, I'll just mention one distance which is like a very recent development called word movers distance. And this example will show the strength of this method, that like how using word movers distance we can find similar sentences. Look at the top one, Obama speaks to the media in Illinois, and the second one, D0, the president breaks the press in Chicago. These two sentences, as humans we know that they are similar, they are probably talking about the same thing. But look at the words, there are not a single word which are the same in these two sentences. But still, using word-to-vec and word movers distance, we can actually find the similarity between these two sentences. And if you see the distance means the similar they are, the distance will be smaller. So you see that D1 and D0 has like less distance than D0 and D2. So you can, excuse me. So you can see that like the strength of this method, that it can actually find similarity between very similarly sensed sentences without having any word in common in between these two. Let me talk about very quickly another model which is called similar to event for a topic model. It's called for events extracting from news articles. So you have like news articles. The reason here topic models will not work well is because in news it has a structure. It's unlike any other document it has a structure. The title, it has paragraph, and there is a structure followed by the journalists or the writers of this kind of articles. There is a structure followed by this to write news articles. And what you see, the events, and what are these articles? Essentially, they're reporting about some events, right? And this events probably is an example of a larger event class, like this article, protest, is about protests. And this protest can be thought of as a general class of events. And this particular article is talking about one specific instance of an event. And that is how it is, you can say it's an example of the event drawn from the event class, protest. And how do we know that? There's special words in these articles. Protest, threatened, sloganeering, etc. So these kind of special words, also called as triggers, can actually tell you what event it is represent. And using this very special, not all words in the article, but some specialized words or triggers, we know what a protest event will usually look like. It will have words like protest, sloganeering, threatening, strike, etc. And this is also a probabilistic graphical model, a generative model. So from a large number of news articles, you learn this model, and you can, after you learn this model, you can actually generate this kind of generate articles from this model. In other words, you know what event it came from this event class model. And these are some examples of event classes learned from 10-year-long news article corpus. And as you can see, if you ignore the citation at the bottom right corner, I'm saying this very objectively. This is a very interesting paper, and this event class has actually shown to predict food prices using events from news articles, shown to predict food prices and disease outbreaks very effectively in India. And there are other more sophisticated models coming up. One of them is like deep models. The one part of the problem in our case we didn't consider was the translation. Like when Modi used some other language to on Twitter, how can we find similar articles on the news? So there are, we didn't consider this aspect of the problem, but there are models, deep models, where you can actually do that. And you have like visualization techniques for representing text. Word cloud and another one, ESLE, are among the popular ones. Which one? Oh, I don't remember. I can check that for you. It's a non-linear dimension reduction method. I can check that for you. So essentially, what happens over here is we're converting unstructured text into as structured data. And what structured data we got here was what tweets, Modi's tweets were actually mentioned by the news articles. And here is a summary of the results we got, that these are the number of tweets for each year that were quoted or used in the, was mentioned in the traditional news media. And what purpose it serves, it helps us with the structured data, versions of the data. We can address quite a few questions. Like in this particular context, you can say what type of tweets are more likely to be covered in the traditional media. Like after he became prime minister, did it change anything in the pattern? Did the retweet rates change after it was mentioned in the media? Did it have a positive effect on the retweet, etc. And as I'm saying that, I'm like giving you some answers that like, so we coded these tweets using like manually encoded this tweet and found that call-out type, greetings type, and initiatives type of messages were more likely to be covered in the media. And like yes, after he became the prime minister, traditional media tend to cover more of his tweets in the news articles, and his retweet rates increases by 60% when media mentions the tweet. And this is just start. New opportunities of more qualitative research can be open using this data. Let me quickly go through another problem. This is about finding diffusion dynamics of social protest movements. So let's move out of the global south and move like to the local north. And so the way this is done is usually manual, and it can be like slow and biased. And what we can do is using text news articles reporting about this movements. how can we convert that into a structured data again. And the way it's done is basically, if you look at, like, extract the location and the number of people attended the protest movements, we can identify how the protest movement started and grew in size. And so again, this is a problem of converting unstructured text into structured data, where you have, like, structured data in the form of movements. Here we focus on two movements, Occupy Wall Street and Black Lives Matter. And we have, like, the entire details extracted automatically from news text to do that. And here we use with traditional some natural language processing information extraction methods with some modifications. And here is like an overview of the results we got. And this is like how it started, where it started, and in 6 months where it, like how it evolved. And I would like to end with this slide that in the beginning I talked about the complexity of the methods. I would like to draw another axis, which is domain assumptions from the domain. And you can place different methods across this, like classical methods like hypothesis testing or distance measures can be present in the wide spectrum of these methods. But all other methods, you can have a simpler version without any domain assumptions, but make it more complex with more domain assumptions. And yes, there are other ways of doing, like there are future ways of doing this. One is make things faster with the scale of the data, extract more different kinds of information. We talked about humor or like sarcasm, or we can extract those information from the text or influence. And yes, like make the world shorter by developing models which can use possibly good information. With that, I'll end.